Hi, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Kate Skinner. I'm a physical therapist and creator of Hypermobility Solutions and founder of Great Divide Physical Therapy. I specialize in chronic pain and complex conditions, including hypermobility. Today, I'm excited to do a demo for you. And this is something that I get asked about all the time. If I'm hypermobile, can I do planks? And there are tons of plank challenges, plank workouts. Planks seem to be involved in all sorts of exercise programs. So it is a really important piece to know and understand. And like so many of my videos, if you've watched them before, it's not about if you can do it, it's all about how you do it. So if you do it well, planks are actually a great exercise for people who are hypermobile. They're very isometric, they're smaller movement patterns. You get a lot of weight bearing and strengthening from multiple body parts all at once, so they're really efficient. But they're also a great exercise to do incorrectly. And so I thought, what a better way to explain it than to be able to show you the different plank positions and explain how to do them correctly. So then this way you can go back, and when you do it, either as part of an exercise program or just trying it at home, you can check in and see if you're doing them well or if you need a little bit of modification. So first off, the basic plank. This is one where you're going to be forward, and there are so many options you can do with planks. So make sure that you are looking for your specific level, not whatever is on the screen or whatever your class is doing. Stay at the level that works for you. And what I tell people is you want that to be a good moderate level. You feel like you're working, you feel like you could possibly do a little bit more, but you're not straining. If you are straining, holding your breath, struggling to get through it, most likely you are not going to be using the right muscles, you're not going to be using the right mechanics, and it's not going to be helpful. So make sure that you're using your time to make yourself better, not feed into pain problems. So forward planks. So many ways you can do that. So the first is just doing a plank from your hands. And there's a couple of things you need to watch if you are bendy. One is those wrists, whether or not you have pain, and making sure that you have weight in the center of the wrist, that you're not kind of rolling onto the outside. Second is those elbows, making sure that they are not hyperextending on you, but they are actually straight underneath your shoulders. And then third, that you are using your core muscles, not your back and not your hip flexors, to hold you up. So if you're dropped through your shoulders and through your back, you need to round and make sure you've got your shoulder blades strong. You have to pull your abs in towards your stomach. And if you feel it working through the front of your thighs here, not what you're going for. We want those abs. So what do you do if you can't quite do that? You can't get that to work there. Well, you can switch from your knees. Knees shorten up that lever. Shorter levers always work well for people who are hypermobile. Not so long to control, less force. The other thing is you can come down to your elbows. Again, shorter lever makes it easier to control on both shoulders. If you have hand issues, it takes your hand and wrist out of the equation, so then you don't have to worry about that. And then it allows you to focus on that core more. Now, shorter does not mean easier. It can be just as hard in this position if you're really engaging those abs, not dropping through or using your back. Now from here too, you can modify where you can just work on knee extension, where you're holding that position. And that can be very challenging. So you want to make sure that you are using the correct level. Now, I'm going to show you with going forward with the elbows. This is something I see that's more unique to my hypermobile population, more so than my average body population. You want those kind of lines, the creases in your elbows when you're doing this to face each other. you want to make sure that your hands are forward. And if you're going to do this, you want to make sure that you don't have one elbow facing forward, the other facing in. You really want them to both face each other and not hyperextend out. So you got to find straight, and you've got to make sure that everything is going the same direction. Having one hand over here, one hand forward, all of those asymmetries are going to be a problem, and they're going to impact everything up the chain. So fingers forward, elbows facing each other, not going weird directions, and then using those abs. Those are some of the most important pieces. Now, if you are higher level, great. Then you can progress into higher level exercises. So if you've already got planks down, they're pretty easy for you, then you've got lots of options. You can do shoulder tapping, working on stabilizing forward and back, hip extension, trying to do them together. And there are so many options, but it always comes down to those same basics. Engaging your core, and if you feel it using your back, you need to make an adjustment. And it's something that you want to check in with regularly. What muscles am I using? And please don't go by if it feels straight, it's right. Get some objective feedback. So to do that, set up a camera so you can see how you're doing it. Use a mirror, have somebody else give you feedback on whether or not you're straight. But just remember, what feels straight is your normal, not necessarily what's actually straight. So do kind of check in until you get that pattern down and feel like you've got it. Now, side planks. I love side planks, I use them all the time. Not only are they great for shoulders, those lateral obliques, but also those hip abductors. And one of the most common adjustments we make is to go knees versus feet. Feet is a long lever arm, and it tends to be harder on knees, harder on backs. So if you are having more trouble with it, shift to your knees. Make sure that you're using your hip to do the lifting. Make sure that you're staying up out of your shoulder, where you're not resting down onto it, but pushing up out of it. And then you can easily progress by lifting that top leg or holding that top leg up. So it's not about bigger movements. If the longer lever doesn't work for you, shorten your lever, make it work, and then add movements and resistance on top, rather than trying to push into that full plank. So that's not a lesser option, it is just a better option for you. If you don't have any trouble doing the full side plank, your knees feel good, your ankles feel good, your back feels good, and you're using that hip and those obliques, then great, that's a good option for you. You can work into a full star pose, but if you're somebody that you keep trying to work into it and it just doesn't work for you, don't do it. Stay with the modified and then progress your modified into more challenging movements, but just don't go into that long lever. Now, even with any of these added movements, whether it's forward or side, make sure that you keep them small. One of the things that I see people make mistakes on, I'll show you in the side option, if I can, is that people want to go large, big movements, because hypermobility, like we can do movement really well. So trying to like kick your leg as high as you can, that is one of the things you want to watch, because the more movement, the more control you have to have. So little movements. Make it challenging, make it burn, but don't go big. Big always flows into bigger muscles, bigger control patterns, and you usually blow through those little stabilizing muscles, and so they never tend to work as well. Now, if you've worked hard at it, there are always exceptions. If you're really high level and you have a ton of self-awareness, you might be able to do that fine. But by and large, most of us need to go smaller, not bigger with our movements, and really focus in on what we're using. Now the last plank we're gonna do is forward plank. And so this is one where you can work on your glutes and your triceps, which is so great for hypermobility. It gives you weight bearing, but you can also control the position. Now, the big things that I see is you gotta make sure your fingers facing forward at your butt. You can bend your knees up, squeeze your butt, lift your hips up, and then walk your feet out. Okay? Now, elbows. Don't hyperextend your elbows. They need to be straight underneath you. And again, they need to stay turned forward. Be careful about trying to rotate them out, back, that you want them engaged with your triceps, shoulders solid. One of the cues that I tend to see a lot with this is shoulders away from the ears. When you're hypermobile, you can push way out of your ears. You don't want to do that. You want it to be level from your neck. So just think engaged rather than pushing away. Now from here, I'm going to back up so you can see a little bit better with, we'll go this way. So when you're up here, like I can actually, if I'm not careful, I can hyperextend my knees. So then I'm resting on those ligaments. That is what we don't want. So I gotta engage my glutes, and I also have to engage my quad muscles to hold my knees straight. Now, if you can't do this, this is a great one just to hold this pose to work on that stability. But if that is a lot, and that can be a lot because it's a long lever, bend your knees. Think about keeping a little bit of a bend in them so that you can focus on those glutes. You're gonna engage hamstrings a ton, but you won't hyperextend those knee joints. And modification is always key. Being able to be aware of where you're at, adjust to the level that you can do, and just continuing to work there. So please continue to incorporate planks where you can. If you are just starting out and you're just trying to get moving, planks can be a good way to incorporate. Just go very small. And so for those of you who are just getting going, I start my people on their stomach, kind of on their elbows like this, and then thinking about lifting your abs up off the floor. So think pull belly button in toward your spine, trying to engage those ab muscles. No backs, no hips. I'm not digging my knees into the ground. All I'm doing is lifting up. And that allows me to start finding those abdominal muscles without the other muscles hopping in and contracting. So that can give you an option. If that is too much for you, then stick with some of the other core exercises, the ones on your back where your spine is supported, and work through those first. Hopefully that gives you a better idea of what you're doing with your planks. Please continue to work on your strength, be aware of your mechanics, checking in on which muscles you're using, and should those be the ones that should be working. Those are really important questions to ask yourself periodically through all your exercises or even daily activity when you're hypermobile. And I hope you continue to have a wonderful week improving toward living a more pain-free life. And I will see you next time.